From my little corner of the Caribbean, the world often feels very far away. Life here moves to the rhythm of the tides, a gentle and predictable pace. But even here, news from Great Britain arrives like a constant, insistent drumbeat. I find myself an outsider, looking in, a spectator to a grand ongoing drama. I was raised with the Queen's face on our currency and her holidays on our calendar. The traditions of the crown were woven into the fabric of my childhood, a distant but ever-present part of our story. My accent, a curious blend of island lilt and English cadence, is a living echo of a connection that spans an ocean and generations. It's a strange position to be in. I see the pomp and pageantry, the grand state occasions that seem to stop the world for a moment. But I also see the other side of it, the relentless churn of the tabloid press. It's a fascinating and often frightening spectacle. From thousands of miles away, I watch as lives are built up and then torn down in the space of a single news cycle. The British tabloids are more than just newspapers. They are a cultural force, they are a political player, they are a shaper of public opinion, they are the narrators of the nation's story, with a particular fascination for the royal family. It is a relationship that is both symbiotic and deeply toxic. To understand the tabloids of today, we have to go back in time. We need to travel back to the 19th century, a period of immense change in Britain. Visionary press barons like Alfred Harmsworth, later Lord Northcliffe, saw this opportunity. Harmsworth launched the Daily Mail in 1896. It was a revolution. Instead of long, complicated articles, he offered short, snappy stories. He focused on human interest, crime, and scandal. He understood a fundamental truth. People are interested in other people. It was punchy, it was dramatic, and it was an instant, massive success. This was the blueprint for the tabloid machine. As the 20th century dawned, the competition between newspapers became even more intense. Selling papers was everything. Circulation figures were a matter of life and death. This insatiable hunger for the scoop gave rise to new tactics, methods that pushed the boundaries of journalism and ethics. The reporter became a detective, a spy, and sometimes a predator. One of the darkest tactics to emerge was phone hacking. Journalists would illegally access the voicemail messages of public figures, celebrities, and even ordinary people caught up in major news events. Imagine your most personal conversations, your moments of joy or grief, being secretly recorded and twisted for public consumption. This wasn't just invasion of privacy, it was a profound violation of human decency. The royal family has always been the ultimate prize for the tabloid press. They are the longest-running, most compelling soap opera in the world. For the tabloids, the royals represent a goldmine of stories. This relationship wasn't always adversarial. For a long time, there was an unspoken agreement, but in the latter half of the 20th century, that dance began to change. The unspoken agreement was broken piece by piece. The royal family is not just a family, it is a global brand. And like any major brand, it has a highly sophisticated public relations machine. It operates on a system of carefully controlled access. Journalists who are seen as friendly are rewarded. This is the famous royal rota, but it can become a tool to manage the press. Let's imagine a young actress. We'll call her Clara. She has just landed her first major role. At first, the attention is thrilling. The tabloids praise her as Britain's newest sweetheart. But the fairy tale soon takes a darker turn. Clara starts dating a well-known musician. Suddenly, the narrative shifts. The lens of the press becomes harsh and critical. Now let's consider someone who never sought the spotlight. Let's call him David. He is a school teacher living a normal life. One day, a tragic event catapults him into national news. Reporters camp outside his house. They shout questions as he tries to take his children to school. His quiet, ordinary life is shattered in an instant. Working for the royal family is meant to be the ultimate position of trust. Let's imagine Simon, a dedicated royal aide who has served the institution for years. He is discreet, loyal, and deeply committed. One day, private details begin to leak to tabloids. The truth is devastating. A junior colleague, someone Simon had mentored, has been selling stories to a journalist for cash. Clara finds herself in a downward spiral. The constant criticism triggers severe anxiety and depression. She stops leaving her apartment, terrified of cameras that might be waiting outside. David also pays a heavy price. The trauma is compounded by media intrusion. He is diagnosed with PTSD. He feels shame and anger as if he failed to protect his family. The damage extends beyond the individual. It ripples outwards, fracturing families and destroying relationships. For Clara, her family watches helplessly as she's vilified in public. The fallout within the palace is a crisis of institutional trust. When an aide leaks information, the entire system is shaken. Colleagues who worked together for years begin to look at each other with suspicion. The relationship between the palace and tabloids is more complex than it appears. Sometimes it's a secret negotiation, a devil's bargain struck in shadows. The palace needs the tabloids to reach the British public. Sometimes a story that appears to be a tabloid scoop is actually carefully placed information from within the palace itself. It is a game of strategic chess. This creates a deeply toxic environment. The same journalist who accepts a positive briefing one day can publish an intrusive story the next. The palace is playing with fire. When you look at the monarchy's relationship with the press, one painful question keeps coming up. Why did the institution fail so often to protect its own people? There is a vast gap between the public image of the royal family and their private reality. We see the public ritual, the magnificent carriages, the flawless waving, the perfectly executed ceremonies. But behind the gilded curtains, private pain. They smile for cameras, then read cruel headlines, the lies, the invasive stories. Family conflicts twisted and magnified for entertainment. The ritual of perfection creates the market for private pain. It places the family in an impossible position, criticized if remote and perfect, torn apart if human and fallible, trapped between the crown and the mirror. Perfection demanded, every flaw distorted for profit. A cruel, unforgiving cycle where public happiness increases the value of exposing private suffering. So here we are at the end of our journey. We've travelled from the birth of the penny press in Victorian London to the modern-day digital battlefield. We have seen how a powerful and profitable machine was built. We've looked at the tactics, phone hacking, paparazzi setups, paid informants. This is the scandal, how the relentless pursuit of the scoop left a trail of destruction in its wake. We have followed the tragically real stories of lives shattered by this machine. This journey shows us that the problem is systemic. It's about a culture that has normalized intrusion and an economic model that incentivizes cruelty. But recognizing the depth of the problem is the first step toward finding a solution. The arc of our story does not have to end in despair. A reckoning is about reflecting on what we have learned and deciding to build something better. So, what can be done? How do we repair what has been broken? First, there must be meaningful legal and regulatory reform. We need a truly independent body with power to impose serious financial penalties. Privacy laws must be strengthened. A victims fund, financed by fines on newspapers, could help pay for therapy and legal support for those harmed by press intrusion. Second, the palace itself must change. The never complain, never explain strategy is no longer fit for purpose. A new era of transparency is needed, confronting lies and protecting all family members. The Crown must end the toxic practice of briefing against its own members. It must refuse the devil's bargain with harmful publications. It has a moral duty to protect its people. Third, the change must come from us. We, the public, hold the ultimate power. We must become more media literate. Stop clicking intrusive headlines. Stop buying papers that trade in human misery. Starve the machine of attention, and you starve its profit. We can create a demand for a more compassionate, more ethical media. From my distant shore, I end this story with hope. Change is possible. It requires courage from our leaders, integrity from our institutions, and shared responsibility from all of us. The story of the tabloids and the crown is a dark one, but the final chapter has not yet been written. We have the power to write it. Build a world where a person's life is worth more than a headline, where privacy is respected, and where the press serves the public interest. The path to repair is long, but it is a journey we must embark on together.